Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a source that paints an incredibly dramatic and, let's be clear, totally hypothetical picture of a U.S. military operation in Venezuela. But here's the twist. The goal isn't to overthrow a government, it's to capture its president.
Think about that for a second. It's a pretty shocking question, right? The source we're looking at today, which is this kind of speculative documentary, builds this whole detailed story just to explore that very idea. So let's dive in and walk through the fictional scenario it lays out and some of the really bold claims it makes along the way.
The story that this source builds is set in the very near future, kicking off on this specific date, January 3rd, 2026.
And the setting? Well, it's the heart of power in Caracas, Venezuela, the Miraflores presidential palace, the official home of the president.
According to this narrative, the whole operation kicks off under the cover of a total blackout. A cyber attack supposedly takes down the entire power grid, plunging Caracas into complete darkness.
And the mission is given this very official and kind of ominous codename, Operation Absolute Resolve.
So, how does this hypothetical raid actually go down? Well, the source gets super specific, laying out this minute-by-minute sequence of events that honestly reads like a movie script. The plan it describes is basically a four-stage blitz. It's all about speed. First up, you've got the cyber attack to cause total chaos. Right after that, boom, airstrikes take out all the radar and air defenses. Once the coast is clear, Delta Force commandos supposedly infiltrate the presidential residence. And the final step? The source claims they're in and out with President Maduro captured in an unbelievable 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes.
And to really amp up the drama, the story claims the U.S. president was watching the whole thing on a live feed. This alleged quote is thrown in to show his reaction, making the whole event sound surreal, almost like a piece of entertainment.
All right, but how on earth could an operation this massive even be justified to the rest of the world? The source we're analyzing really digs into that exact question.
Okay, and this is where the source really lays out its central conflict. It's like two completely different stories. On one side, you have the official reason, serious charges like narco-terrorism and drug trafficking. But then the source says, hold on a second. It argues the real reason, the one bubbling under the surface, was something else entirely, a play for oil and a way to protect corporate interests.
Now, to back up its claim and poke holes in the official story, the source shows us this data. And look at the key points here. It claims the cocaine from Venezuela is mostly going to Europe. But then you compare that to Guatemala, which it says sends over 5 times as much coke directly to the U.S. It also flags Mexico as the source of fentanyl, the deadliest drug in America. So the question this data basically asks is, if this was really about stopping drugs from entering the U.S., why target Venezuela?
And that question leads us right to the core argument of the source material, that this whole hypothetical operation was never about justice. It was about oil.
The entire "it was about oil" argument really hangs on this one staggering number, 303 billion. That's how many barrels of proven crude oil reserves the source says Venezuela is sitting on. That would make it the largest in the entire world.
And this chart really drives home the sheer scale we're talking about. You can see it right there. The source points out that Venezuela's reserves don't just rival, but actually top Saudi Arabia's, and they absolutely dwarf the reserves of the United States. This, the narrative argues, is the real prize. To build its case, the source gives us some historical context. It lays out this timeline of rising tensions, starting way back in 1976 when Venezuela nationalized its oil industry. From there, it points to these key moments: Hugo Chavez tightening state control in '99, an alleged U.S.-backed coup attempt in 2002, and then years of escalating economic sanctions. The story it tells connects every single one of these dots back to one thing: control over Venezuela's oil.
And to really hammer the point home, the narrative brings up this second alleged statement from the U.S. president. By framing the nationalization of Venezuela's own resources as a theft from America, the source presents this as the ultimate smoking gun for the operation's true motive.
Okay, so if something like this were to actually happen, what would the fallout be? The source then turns its attention to the potential legal and global consequences.
And that brings us to the biggest question of all. Beyond the motives in the mission itself, would an operation like this even be legal?
Well, according to the analysis in this source, the answer is a hard no.
It argues that, for one, it would violate U.S. law because it's basically an act of war without getting approval from Congress. And on the world stage, it argues this would be a clear violation of the UN Charter, the fundamental agreement that's supposed to stop countries from attacking each other.
And the international reaction, as imagined in this narrative, would be swift and overwhelmingly negative. The source claims that a huge majority of nations would either flat out condemn the action or at least express serious concern about the dangerous precedent it would set for the future.
In the end, the source we're looking at gives this whole hypothetical event a name: New Age colonialism. It's arguing this is just a modern spin on an old playbook, a powerful country using a convenient excuse, in this case a war on drugs, to justify taking another country's valuable resources.
And so this is the final, pretty provocative thought the source leaves us with. It all boils down to this. When the most powerful nations are the ones writing the rules, do those same rules still apply to them? It's a huge question, and it goes way beyond this one hypothetical story, right? It really gets to the heart of how power and international law actually work in the real world.